Hello and welcome to My Media Life, a summer edition brought to you by the World Media Group. My name is Arif Durrani. Now, as I'm hoping some of you are getting to know by now, each edition we try and speak to an industry leader with a view to getting some insights into their own career path and tips for those starting out today, which media they still connect with and why, and much more besides. So do stay tuned. Now, this week is a really interesting one. The industry is about to set off to the south of France to celebrate itself and its place in the world for the first time in 3 years at the Cannes Lions International Festival of Creativity. So who better to join us today than Daryl Lee, the global CEO of IPG Mediabrands. For those who don't know, IPG is one of the big marketing groups in the world. It's through and initiative agencies. It handles more than $40 billion in ad spend. And Daryl is also the president of this year's Media Lions jury. So it's great to have him on board and what must surely be a really busy time. Daryl, many thanks for joining us.
Oh, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's great. So it's great to talk to you. Obviously, you're have this role of president of Media Lions, just as we're about to all head to Cannes, or either virtually or actually in person for many people.
I think it's going to be a big in-person event, big reunion.
I think it is. I'm just aware of the thousands of people who aren't there who are going to get like quasi envy. So I need to think of those guys too. But so you've been there, have you? Have you been judging there, or have you been doing that virtually up until?
No, all virtually to now. We've done a pretty good job of each judging about 300 or so first round entries, and now we're looking at long shortlist. So all of this virtual, and we meet as a jury, every week or so just to connect and see what we're seeing, and then we get together and end of next week start the in-person judging. Very exciting. Lots of great work, lots of media creativity. It's flourishing, which is exciting.
Yeah, the media industry is alive and well.
Yes, very creative, which is not always has not always been the case. I think we went through a necessary period of looking at our infrastructure and looking at our MarTech, ad tech ecosystem and how we're fit for the future. And I think and that's important and still ongoing, but it took a lot of focus. And you saw that in Cannes with all that sort of big ad tech and MarTech brands coming and getting their yacht or their beach or their place in the Carlton. But I think we're seeing a media industry and a media community lifting their eyes back to, okay, we understand this new tech landscape and the emerging data landscape better, and what new innovation and ideation can we bring, which I think is exciting.
It sounds really interesting. We'll look out for that. And so it's a good segue into what does the media industry mean to you?
Change. It means change. I love change. I found my way into the media business from consulting and creative agency, and they both were really focused on clients and brands and business. And I do love the business of our clients and building brands. What media does is take all of that and smack it in the middle of wherever change is happening. And I used to think that was accidental, but now I realize that's the nature of media, because it tracks culture and it tracks good and bad culture, tracks entertainment, it tracks human beings changing views of what they're interested in, right? That is what media is. That's how you attract audiences. So the fact that you combine all these brands and businesses and all the things I love about the world in general, and then the pace of media, which is change, get ready for it, immerse yourself in it, be the first into it. So I love that.
I really like that answer, Daryl. Now, there will be some people who say, oh, it sounds like sociology or something. And I think you belie your entry point. So you began as a media planner, is that right?
Well, I actually began as a business consultant.
Okay. Yeah,
so I started my career at McKinsey. So I started as a pretty hard-nosed, I wouldn't say I was the best corporate modeling practice lead ever, but we went in and we modeled categories and looked at where there would be opportunities for M&A and where there would be opportunities for improvement and performance. So it took I started out, and I started with a very surgical look at how businesses work. And I love still that. I love understanding the business model and new business. Look at all the DTC and all the direct consumer, how that works, how we're flipping retail, digital first into physical. So looking at these DTC brands that are now creating physical spaces, looking at how Amazon has transitioned from being pure e-commerce to actually having some buying Whole Foods and having physical. So I love business, and I love building brands in the context of business. And that came from McKinsey. I went to Ogilvy for a while, and then I came and started my career again, frankly, media planner, comms planner, into media. So I went back to school in some ways with media.
Interesting. Okay. And what's the one piece of advice that has helped in your career?
I know you've asked for one. I might give you two. The first thing I learned, which was really, I'm a strategist, and at heart, I've become a CEO, but I'm a strategist at heart. And strategists love their lunch times because no one schedules a meeting and you can do some work. And so the best advice somebody gave me is never lunch alone. Never. Make sure that every time there's a lunch in your day, so that's every day, you're going to talk to somebody new. You're finding out.
It wasn't Rory Sutherland by any chance.
He actually gave me some other advice. I can't speak that one, but yeah, I mean, there's some famous, he wrote books about it. But it was just somebody who walked past my office and said, "This is the third day in a row I've seen you hunched over your laptop over lunch, eating your, sub, and get out, meet people." And actually, it's why one of the reasons I came to media was to build, because there's always somebody who wants to have lunch with you as a media agency leader, and it's lovely. And I also get to meet people, but I also get to think new things, right? Because there's going to be some new supply chain optimization person who you would never, but you're just like, all right, I'll have lunch with you. I'll only meet you for lunch because I need to eat. And then you learn something new about the tech ecosystem, or you meet somebody who's looking at a new audience, or you just meet somebody who's got something interesting going on in their lives. And that keeping your mind open to that, I think, is important. The other thing I was told was speak up, which that's my advice to people when they walk in here, which is speak up. No, we can't answer a question you don't ask. Yeah,
really good advice. And the media lunch thing is really interesting because that's obviously where you get ideas from. It's connectivity. It's right. That's the thing people misunderstand. They say, "Oh, you're just lunching, or you're dining, or and it's not that. It's actually, when you're in a creative business, which is all about putting people first, you need those connection points, don't you?
Yeah, and you see that with. I remember. Having a lunch, and this is not self-serving, it just accidentally happens to be a New York Times example, but having a lunch with a senior client in the New York Times, where it turns out, and there was American Express, turns out New York Times and American Express, just as part of a lunch, were created in the same year. Who knew? And so that sparked what can we do together? Could we do a food festival? Could we think, and a really big idea came out of that lunch, which was nothing more than just we were going to have lunch, and we were looking for someone to have lunch with, and the New York Times said, "Hey, come have lunch with us." So it is I think and that's the thing you can't automate. We will automate a lot in our industry, and we should standardize and automate a lot, even though walled gardens and stuff are making it harder to do that. We will and must constantly, as agencies, look to create consistency so we can compare across platforms. And as we automate, which helps people, we will require relationships even more to come up with the big ideas and frankly, the human connections allow you to call somebody and say, "I know we haven't planned for this, but got to do this." Sure. Which is what business is about.
And what's your favorite thing about your current job?
I love being a coach. I use this metaphor a lot, and I'm not a big sports fan, so don't ask me a lot of sports questions.
Set the context for us. How big is Mediabrands, of which you're CEO?
13,000 people around the world. We have these two big brands, and Initiative, and then we have specialty brands that support them. So we have what I call, we have a blue team and a red team. Initiative's blue and is red. So we do have these two teams that got to play different fields, play different games at different times. But I love And this is not something as a strategist I expected to love, because I love the analytics of business. I love the analytics of media. I love the idea of optimizing your investment against business objectives. So all that I love. But actually, people can't be optimized in that way. People can only be inspired and led. And so what I love the opportunity I've been given, which is to think about what does a leader need to do to be a leader as opposed to a boss. And my model is now more and more coaches, because I think what coaches do, they bring out the best in people, they put them in the right position, they move them out of position into new position. And there's always a clear bias towards the team versus the star. For most, right? As in all, occasionally you get distracted by having the star in a team, that the Ted Lasso lesson, but always, I think you learn that the team is stronger than the stars, and if you can find people who work as a team, you get. So that learning I didn't, and through the pandemic, that was really helpful because people felt really isolated, and so keeping them together as a team, making it feel like a team, and making myself sort of cheerleader and coach. I think has been super interesting. The other thing I love about my job is getting to, so on the people side, I love that, but also getting to speak up, frankly, as I was advised to do, about things that I don't think are right in the media business, and being heard. And I know I have a platform. I don't have a big platform, but I have a platform, and I use it for good.
Yeah,
I hope.
Yeah, sure. I like that. And so what advice, very much linked to that answer actually, but what advice would you give to someone starting out in the media marketing career today?
Well, I don't need to give them advice to speak up. That is not advice I need to give, because there's absolutely no, this generation, there's no quietness. I think it's really be creative, because the opportunity now, like never before in media, and I think in business, is to find new connections, find new combinations. And I like to say creativity is everybody's business, which wasn't always the case. I do think today it is the case that creativity is everybody's business, and there's no, oh, there's the science guy, and then there's the art guy, or there's the people who just do the hard analysis, and then here's the people who think conceptually and creatively. I think we all have to bring the pace of change requires it, but frankly, the openness in business, if it makes it possible. So no matter where you are, no matter where you're starting, if you see something that can be created, speak up, let's do it. And particularly with the big digital platforms, with clients becoming more publishers, the amount of not just content that can be created, but combinations and partnerships that can be formed, that can be at every level. So be creative, and think of yourself as one of the worst things we did as industry was create a creative department. Like, how bizarre is that? A creative department. Like, there's a group of people who are creative and everybody else. So that is bullshit and needs to go. And we're all creative.
Yeah, I like it. It's interesting though, isn't it? Because the focus now, at schools and in a lot of the tech companies is on STEM, and it's on the science, mathematics.
Yes.
And so to hear you say, be creative, and creativity is a superpower, which I entirely agree with. But a lot of people, because they struggle to actually put a value on that, and because it's hard to measure, and it's the output, I guess.
It's hard to measure. It's easy to see when you don't have it. I mean, I think some of the big, if you look at some of the big failures, who can I talk about that as not, I mean, there's no one that's not going to, if you look at GE, why is GE, this amazing diversified company, failing, struggling, right? It's a failure of imagination. They had an opportunity. They actually had a creative idea that helped them be creative about the business. It's called eco-imagination. Make a bet on energy sustainability, which is, by the way, our sustainable energy strategy is all of the above. It's not and or, it's all of the above. Make a bet. They had eco-imagination, and then I was like, oh, that seems too out there and too hard to fit. So we give up on that. That's a failure of imagination. And I think, and now look at it. It's, it's a shell of a company that it used to be.
Well,
So
it's interesting, isn't it? Because you began your career, as you've just told us, on the sort of marketing management consultancy side. And obviously, these are the guys who are now trying to get a piece of the action in terms of the media and the creative industry space.
Yes.
And and make some headway, but obviously they've had to fight this corporate culture, which didn't really necessarily allow for creativity initially. It wasn't built for that purpose. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, having had a foot in both camps.
Well, I do. Maybe. I mean, I have a thought. Remember, I come with my biases, and my biases are my biases. I think there are two kinds of consultancies, like there are two kinds of agencies. There's strategic consultancies and there's execution consultancies. And there's strategic agencies and execution agencies. Now, I think the strategic consultancies are looking very choicefully at where they get involved, whether it's on market segmentation, audience. I think audience segmentation, definitely we're running up against the Bains, the McKinseys, the BCGs. And then there's the execution consultancies who are looking at how do you manage process change? How do you create new operations? And that's the Accentures and the Deloittes of the world. I don't see the Accentures and Deloittes of the world as competition, because they're helping clients get their internal operations right. And if they do, great. It makes our operations interact more seamlessly with them. Strategically, I think there's some there's definitely competition, and we don't win those all the time. We win them more than you would expect against the big consultancies, the strategic ones. Accenture is a complex one because Accenture Interactive is not a consultancy. Accenture Interactive is just another agency. So it has Accenture as a name, but I don't know that it has any Accenture in it. You know what I mean? It's just builds these websites that are e-commerce websites that I think other e-commerce agencies do. But I think there are a group of consultants who aren't the traditional ones, who are helping our clients in-house content and media and data capabilities. And that is a new phenomenon. And we as agencies are learning how to partner better with them. It's not going to be you're in, we're out. We're always going to be there, but how we offer a more managed service to clients. Do we license our technology? Do we license our tools? Do we embed some of our people on the client side? And we won't get the same fees, but we will get a stronger relationship and be able to look for other opportunities. We are making that pivot, and to me that's the challenge, which is how do we then partner with in-housing consultants so that it is not adversarial, but that it's a collaborative partnership.
Yeah, sure. And I'm sure you guys will work out a way, because one thing media agencies are really good at is innovating and being agile. I've seen, you've incorporated everything from PR to social to content marketing, you guys
e-commerce to e-commerce to
e-commerce. Yeah. So what would you say your own personal secret talent is? What do you really bring to the equation?
Optimism. I'm a very idealistic person. I grew up in South Africa, which was disaster into miracle.
Okay.
And so I am really, somebody told me the other day, I'm a strong optimist, which I thought was, so I'm very optimistic, and I'm not fake. People come and say, house is on fire, clients leaving, we didn't win this. Oh my God, something ran. We didn't win a campaign in the middle of December that was about, holidays. And I'm like, okay, we'll find a way. We'll find a way. First of all, let's acknowledge the pain. And secondly, we'll find a way to make it a positive. We'll find a way to make it up. So I'm very optimistic. And I spent some of my childhood, because I was easily bored, and I played a lot of sport and was I was very nerdy and worked in school, but I was very easily bored. And so I did a lot of, if you just translates, like theater. I did a lot of theater and a lot of, we called it candlelight theater. We would go around to retirement homes and do a lot of Monty Python and stuff like that. And, which in South Africa was super weird. But I think that I have a deep sense of performance, and I don't use it, but when I need to, it's very helpful. I think what media agencies have learned to do, because we do so much pitching, we do so much, we speak to CEOs and CFOs, I think way more than creative agencies do now. That sense of when there's a performance, show up with a performance, and make it a performance. People have come to see a show, not a conversation. I think I do that quite consciously, and my team knows. And I have they're like, oh, you've got the stage props now, because I bring out the suits and I bring out the shoes. But I have that sense, and I think that's also, I find joy in that, and everybody's like a very serious meeting. We're presenting to the CEO of this big company, and I'm like, oh, let's make it. What's the performance we're going to put on? Like, what is it? Because it can't just be the work we do. They're looking to an agency for something more. It's got to be an emotional experience. Otherwise, they could just get it from looking at a report. So.
Yeah, I really like that answer, and I think one day we'll have to do a dedicated podcast just to the art of a pitch, and everything that goes into it now.
Oh, I love it.
There's so much going on. Your initial answer of optimism is an interesting one, because obviously I can see how that would help the teams around you. But maybe does it make you sort of less risk averse if you're always optimistic?
Less risk averse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just wondering what the potential downside could be.
Well, I know I'm optimistic in a very risk-conscious industry, and I'm optimistic in a very risk-conscious culture. So I'm definitely surrounded by people who are, I would say, more buttoned up.
They're doing the worrying for you.
It's a team. It's a team. No, and we don't. We like e-commerce. We needed to get, and we obviously e-commerce even prior to the pandemic. How do we get into e-commerce? We thought about making some acquisitions. We looked at the acquisitions. There was too much risk. I was very keen on an acquisition. My team was not. We agreed not to, and we've built a business now that's bigger than some of the acquisitions we looked at. So they were right. No, I'm a team player. My optimism gets put into the mix, and the risk, some of the risk aversion. But the optimism about our ability to adapt to whatever gets thrown at us, I think, is helpful, because I don't, to your point of the agility, I don't see a problem that can't be an opportunity. I don't think if you have a great relationship with clients, you understand their business, you know that we're in the business of audiences and not buying and selling, we'll always be valuable. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you're just about to be president of the Media Lions jury.
Yes.
A great position to have in 2022. Now, where do you get your own daily news from?
I have my the big four, which is Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, New York Times, Financial Times, not in that order, actually in reverse order. And then I go
finding that now. So,
well, I end with the Wall Street Journal. I sometimes start with the New York Times if something big is happening in the world, or usually the Financial Times. Although I don't want to read any more about Boris Johnson. Can I say that? I'm just done. It's just enough.
You're not in the minority there. I think
it's enough.
I think he's had enough of reading about Boris Johnson, which is unusual.
He's like, stop looking at me. Maybe parties here differently. And Politico. I am a news junkie. Yeah.
And is that mainly sort of digital and sort of email feeds now?
It's all through my iPad.
Yeah,
I have a iPad Pro, and I sit and read that. I read the New Yorker on the iPad Pro. Yeah, I mean, I still get a printed copy of, I think, the Financial Times, but I don't think I've read it in that printed copy in years. Yeah, I'm not sure why I get it. That's a good question.
It's probably part of your complimentary subscription, I'm sure.
Yeah. No, I pay. Okay. I'm very clear. No.
Advisors,
no. Campaign, Ad Week, Ad Age, I pay for, and I pay for my news sources. That's the point. I want them to be my news sources. Sure. I don't want them to be somebody gave them to me.
And in terms of sort of media brands in general, sort of lifestyle media brands, which media brands are most important to you?
I don't have obviously I do a lot of streaming. I'm in that.
What, Netflix, or what's your go-to platform?
Prime. Okay. I'm a big Prime Video guy. there is a Netflix show I will watch. I think Prime, HBO Max, and Prime, I think, have managed to carve out a position of sort of more interesting, more thoughtful content. Netflix sort of does the great content spectrum. I think those are and then I do watch CNN. I have secret vices like Below Deck, which, if you haven't watched Below Deck, it's a Bravo show it's a reality TV show about people who work on luxury yachts, and they're the team Below Deck, and it is just bad for you and unstoppably gripping. And a lot of sport. It's just the most amazing tennis we just saw in the last 2 weeks, and I'm looking for some new tennis coming up. And but it is interesting how the brands, you don't say NBC, ABC anymore. You say HBO Max, Prime Video. Peacock, I think, is a great. Hulu is a great is a brand in my life.
Interesting. And this may again dovetail into that question, but how do you switch off from being always on?
Gardening. We were just talking about your garden. I have a garden. I go biking. We have a house that's 2 hours north of New York City, which has a huge yard that I try to keep up poorly. And then, so I love that. I love being out. I'm not sure what's it called? Tree bathing or something, bathing, where you go out and forest bathing or something. But something like that. Something like that happens to me when I'm out in nature.
Yeah, I think that's the point. I think it happens to everyone, whether they know,
whether you call it or not.
It's a primeval thing. Okay, I see that. So are you getting into gardening more as you get older? Do you find yourself?
We all become grandparents, I think. Yes. Oh, I'm obsessed. The other day I was like, my roses are not performing as I would like. And I remember thinking this about my grandfather, going, he spends an awful lot of time talking about roses. What is his problem? And I'm like, oh yeah, this is what's happened. I've now become someone who cares about my roses. It's
okay. Well, next week it will all be about rosé, so you're okay.
Exactly.
You're still young as well.
From roses to rosé.
Yes. And finally, Daryl, who or what inspires you?
Well, I have him behind me, Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela, what an amazing, to come from one of the first black lawyers in the country, then banned, then imprisoned, 27 years, worked in a quarry in this awful jail cell, and then came out and was a unifier and, built a rainbow nation with all warts and all. But still just this grace to come out and have such grace. So he inspires me.
I can see why.
Yeah, and just always. Whenever I think
he was the right man at the right time, wasn't he, for South Africa?
With the right character, like he and you read his writings. He was obviously raised in a particular way, which has built a character, but he worked on his character. It's such an interesting thing. We had we go to great places to have meetings. So we had a meeting in Mallorca the other day, as you do when you get your global leadership team together, and Tony Nadal was there. So Tony Nadal, who Rafael Nadal's greatest of all time, his uncle and coach, and he came to speak to us. And we asked him, what's the difference? What makes the difference in a good tennis player to a great tennis player? And he said, someone who works on their character, not someone who has great character, but someone who works on their character to become better. Right. And I was like, I think that Mandela did that. He was like, all right, I need to work. Like, I don't know what's going to happen with my life, but I need to not become bitter. I need to be the leader here. I need to help other people stay focused on the positive opportunities in our country. It was amazing.
He talks about the importance of creativity as well, doesn't he, in the mind?
Yes.
I remember he talks about the importance of singing and dancing when he was incarcerated and walked to freedom. Yes. Amazing. Daryl, look, it's been really nice to spend some time with you just before your big gig in Cannes. So many thanks for that. It's been great.
You're welcome. Lovely conversation. Lovely to meet you.
You too. We'll speak again soon. Hopefully.
Take care and see you in Cannes, maybe.
Yes, see you in Cannes. That's going to annoy so many people, but
I'm sorry. Or virtually. Okay, bye.
Bye. And thanks again to Daryl Lee, the global CEO of IPG's Mediabrands there. And thank you for joining us. I hope you're finding these discussions as fascinating as I am. I mean, it's great to see leaders with a real point of view and a real sense of where they see the industry heading. And obviously really personable. Again, you get to understand why these guys get to where they are. But if you'd like to find out more about My Media Life or indeed the World Media Group, do look at the website online. And until the next time, do please enjoy the sun wherever you may be. Thanks for joining me. Take care.